Hey, afternoon, everybody. Pastor Rob Bailey. It is 2 p.m. It's time for our Immerse devotion as we just gather together. I know it's 2 p.m. You've had lunch. A nap sounds really good right now. We're just going to spend a few moments together as we've been reading through Messiah. Now, Messiah, again, is through Immerse, which is this Bible study. This helps us get a better chance of a relationship with Jesus, to read Scripture, as I drop it, read Scripture in a way that just helps us understand it better. We can do this with one another, and we ask a couple questions. And the reason why we do this together is that at Southlake, we have Immerse Saturday mornings, which is now led by Jessica Leach, who just talks us through 4 questions about what we've read throughout the week. So these devotions go along with that reading. So that way, if you miss a day of reading, or you're kind of curious what's going on, this is a great time just to be together right now and just hear what Scripture was today. Now again, make sure to check out southlakelc.org. This is our website. You can stay up to date with all that's happening. Here on Facebook, for those watching Facebook Live, you can follow along with Engage, Grow, Share. And of course on Twitter and Instagram at SouthLakeLC. Now if you're kind of curious how to be a part of this journey, how to find out what the readings are, to stay in touch with us, send me an email at rbailey@gdlc.org. And by being in touch here, you hear all the updates, what's happening, what we're reading, and just the joy as we're coming together. So if you're kind of curious about starting this yourself, just join us right now at rbailey@gdlc.org. So we are now on our 3rd day of reading. How's it going so far? Well, hopefully you're getting a chance to read Scripture the first time, getting a chance to read maybe the book of Luke, which is where we're at, and just coming together. I didn't talk about this yesterday, but Luke is a doctor, traditionally a doctor, who joined Paul on his missionary journeys. And through all of his experiences in hearing and putting together all the different accounts of Jesus, but also the church, wrote the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. And we're going to be reading through both of those as we have a story of Jesus and a story of the church all coming together. Now, our reading today comes from Luke chapter 4. At least what we're going to focus on for today's devotion. And in Luke chapter 4, Jesus has begun his ministry. He's been baptized. He's been tempted by the devil already. He's calling his disciples. He's starting to reach people and teach them. And now he's back in his hometown called Nazareth. And in Nazareth, he's in the synagogue. So for us Christians, he's attending church. And he's gathered around people. And there's always a special honor for those who are rabbis, those who are teachers, that when they come into town, they get to be really in front of church and to read from the scroll. Again, from the Old Testament, the Scriptures of God. And what we see here is Jesus gets asked to read a scroll. And what's interesting, instead of somebody handing him a specific spot to read from, which what I normally do at church, I'll have people read from a specific text. Jesus gets the scroll and goes, and starts reading. So he actually selects what he reads. And I'm going to pull that up for us right now. So what Jesus shares with us is that he reads a prophecy, really that God says that he's going to complete reaching people. And everyone spoke well of him. So as he read this text, people were excited to see that. But then they asked the question, wasn't this Joseph's son? Again, Jesus' father, who raised him, was Joseph the carpenter, and now he's in his hometown in Nazareth, and they're asking, wait a second, who's this guy who can speak and teach this way? I mean, we grew up with this guy. Who is he? But then Jesus said this. This is verse 23. You'll undoubtedly quote me this proverb, physician, heal yourself, meaning do miracles here in your hometown like those you did in Capernaum. But I tell you the truth, no prophet is accepted in his own hometown. So that's not really Scripture Jesus is quoting as much as Jesus is making the point. And let's face it, we do this too. When somebody says they can create miracles, when somebody says they can heal others, that if they're sick, if they're actually hurting, well, do it for yourself. If you're actually legit, if you're actually doing things who you say you are, heal yourself. Make things happen. And Jesus' response here, but I tell you the truth, no prophet is accepted in his hometown. So make it a point, and this is a good old wise adage, that when people come and preach anything, when you grow up with that person, when you watch them who they are, get to know all the things about them, it can be difficult to listen to what they have to say, and that's what Jesus says. But then he goes on, Jesus continues speaking. Certainly, there are many needy widows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the heavens were closed for 3.5 years, in severe famine in the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them. He was sent instead to a foreigner, a widow of Sepharvath, the land of Sidon. And many in Israel had leprosy in the time of the prophet Elijah, but the only one healed was Naaman, a Syrian. And I've always missed this part when I read through this. So again, this shows you, no matter who we are, when we're reading, it's amazing what things pop up. And this is what key thing here. When they heard this, key phrase there, the people in the synagogue were furious, jumping up. They mobbed him and forced him to the edge of the hill, which the town was built. They intended to push him over the cliff, but he passed right through the crowd and went on his way. The reason why I bring this up today, as we're reading through it, it says when they heard this. It's not that Jesus picked up the scroll earlier and said, hey, everything that God's doing is fulfilled for me. Nobody had a problem with that, actually. It's when he said, in the time of Elijah, again, this is verse 26, in the time of Elijah was sent, Elijah was not sent to any of the people who were starving. Instead, he was sent to a widow of Sepharvath in the land of Sidon. Key thing is, Sidon is north of Israel's country. It's a Gentile. Again, Gentiles are non-Jewish people. And they are enemies of God. These are the unclean people. So Jesus just said, a famous prophet that you all know from this area, when this area was under a famine, who did that prophet go to help? Did he help God's people? Nope. He went to the Gentiles, to the enemy. Another example, a prophet after Elijah, Elisha, which, by the way, I get that mixed up too. In his time, there's leprosy. Leprosy, again, is a bacteria, an infection that affects people. There was tons of lepers in the land of God. And yet Jesus makes a point. But the only one that we know that Elisha heals is Naaman of Syria. Again, Syria, Gentile. Naaman, the head commander of the Syrian forces. So when we talk about the enemy of God, this is literally the top general of the enemy against God's people. And Elisha heals him only. So why does it say the text then that they got upset with these words? Well, the reason why is that for people hearing Jesus speak, being Jewish people, God's people, the people of Moses, of Abraham, that God's promises, Messiah, were for them, not for the enemies of God, not for the Gentiles. Yet Jesus just quoted to them that the top prophets of God, when we read about their works, you see him making a point that, by the way, the only people they helped out were Gentiles. Alluding to Jesus, he's here not just for them, God's people, but for everybody. That's what enraged them. That's what made them upset. And they wanted to run him off a cliff because they were so infuriated. Goes back to our reading yesterday. Simeon, so excited to hear and see Jesus, held him in his arms and told Mary that this boy, God is working a sign that will reveal the hearts of many. Well, in the town of Nazareth, the heart of God's people in that town was being revealed. They were angry, they were hurt, and they wanted to kill Jesus. All because Jesus made a point that God works not just for the Jewish people, considered God's people through Abraham, but God's here for everyone. And I want to share this with you and show you a picture because it's always fun doing these things. This here is a picture from the traditional location, keyword traditional, location of the cliff in Nazareth that people were going to run Jesus off of. So that's what it looks like right here. You can see the other side of the Jezreel Valley. That's actually very close to Megiddo. I apologize, everybody. See, sometimes one's brain goes on. Megiddo's on the opposite side of the valley, and they're about to rush Jesus right off of here. Now, what's interesting, again, this is a traditional location. I'm going to show you a picture right below here. There's a plaque, and on this plaque, I'm going to read this to you. It's on the side for me. Rising above the southern part of Nazareth Mountain, Mount Pericope looks over Nazareth. Mount Tabor in the Israel Valley at its foot. Mount Pericope is also known as the Leaping Mountain. According to the old tradition, so not according to the Gospels, old tradition, Jesus jumped from this mountain when fleeing his pursuers. So I love how this little plaque here, so if you go to this mountain, you'll see this. It makes a point that Jesus, in order to avoid the mob about to throw him off, he jumps down and somehow then walks off. So that's our little reading today, our devotion. So again, Immerse is helping us read through all the New Testament. Right now we're in Luke. And there's more that was in today's reading, but my hope and my prayer is as we read this together, we can talk about this on Saturday. So the question is, just hearing this a little bit from today's reading, is there something you learned new today? Are there challenges you have? Maybe things you want to ask questions about? Knowing who God is and how God worked through Jesus at this moment, do you have questions about your relationship with God? Is there something you can be doing to help others get to know this in your life? Well, if you're thinking about that right now, I would love to hear it on Saturday, 8 a.m., as South Lake we join together for Immerse. And again, some great ways to know and keep up to date is check out our Facebook page right here. If you type in your search bar for those watching on Facebook at Engage Grow Share, you can join us right here. This gives you up to date with all that's happening. For those who don't use Facebook but are watching on YouTube Live right now, this here is our YouTube page. And again, once we have 100 subscribers, it'll be easier for you to search that, but a great way on your smart TV to follow along. And just a great way that we come together. So I love you all. Remember, stay in touch. And if you're kind of curious about getting involved with Immerse, want to learn more, just send me an email right now at rbailey@gdlc.org. Well, I hope this helped you, give you, 12 minutes of just getting through that midday drag, and just keep on going together. I love you all, and here at South Lake, we engage, grow, and share Jesus in our community relationships. And here's the cool thing, guys. We do this together. So I love you all. God bless. Take care.